Hey there, everybody. This is Beyond the Beach, career conversations with graduates of Cal State Long Beach. I'm your host, Kenji Klein, Associate Professor of Management at the College of Business at California State University Long Beach, where I teach business strategy, general management, and organization theory. In this show, I interview former students and recent graduates about life after Long Beach. Our conversations cover topics like how my guests chose a career path, how they landed their first job, and what it's been like to navigate the chaos, challenges, and opportunities of their early careers. My hope is that by hearing the stories of real people who were in your exact shoes just a few years ago, you can get an honest and realistic picture of what might be out there for you beyond the beach. My guest today is Leo Lopez. Leo was a student in my business strategy class back in fall of 2017 and now works as a media planner for Hey Leo, it's really great to have you here.
Hi, it's great to be here, Kenji. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm glad you took some time off to come and talk to me. So let's dive right in. I'm wondering if you could just briefly introduce yourself to our audience and a little bit about about who you are, when you graduated, what you studied, and then what you're doing now.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Leo Lopez. As he mentioned, I graduated in fall of 2017. I actually, his class was basically my last semester at school here. And I graduated with a double major in business management and supply chain management. I'm a media planner now for as mentioned, and I'm really excited to be here.
So that's really interesting to me, right, that you were a supply chain major and a management major. The area you're in, I think most people, when they hear that, media planning, they might be thinking marketing, right?
Yes.
Is the first thing that pops into mind. So let's figure out how you got to that situation. But I want to start with, if you could tell me about like the first job that you had after graduating, how'd you find it? And then how'd you navigate that transition from college to working?
Yeah, it was definitely, for me, I would say it was difficult, just because I like everything, as anyone does, instant gratification. I'm out of school, now I need a job. I need it now. And so for me, it actually took me about 4 months to find a job. I graduated December of 2017, and I didn't start my first post-college job until April of 2018. So that was those 4 months. So for some people, that's going to sound like, 4 months, that's it. It took me a year, you know. But for other people, maybe they already had a job lined up prior to leaving. I know I had a few classmates who, they would tell me that, and they'd say, what are you planning? And I'm like, nah, I don't know.
Right. And there are probably students who are listening going, 4 months? Oh my God, no, I can't afford to have 4 months.
Right. 4 months, I have to pay rent.
Yeah.
I have to pay rent for 4 months. What am I going to do? What am I going to eat? I was, thankful and grateful to both my parents and to God that the fact that I, was able to still be living at home.
Right.
So I didn't really need to worry about that. But I know there's probably some other people in the same situation that 4 months, they live on their own.
Yeah.
Or maybe they even have a kid or they have a spouse that they have to support. That's difficult. So yeah, it took me about 4 months there. And the only way I found it, there's a lot of people who I've heard, did internships, or they had connections, or they knew someone already, or they had something lined up already previously. I didn't have any of that.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Go ahead.
Was the not taking internships while you were in college, was that because you didn't look for them, you didn't think about it, or you tried and they just weren't available?
A mixture of the first two.
Okay.
It was mostly along the lines of, so when I first started going to school, I'm a first generation college student. I think I'm the first person in my entire family line that ever graduated from college. My parents are both immigrants. My dad is from Guatemala, my mom's from El Salvador, and they both moved here when they were in their teens. They met in Los Angeles, and then they got married, and they had me. So I was the first person in my family line to be born in the United States as a United States citizen, and obviously the first one that had a formal education, especially a higher education, I think. And so from that, I had no clue. I had no real understanding. And so in my mind, I would see my dad. My dad I consider a very intelligent, really inspiring person. He never went to school post-elementary school.
Wow.
So I would look at him and I'd say, he's successful. In my eyes, he's a successful man. He's a fulfilled man. I don't need school. I don't need college. I'll do it if I have to. I'm good at it. I can get good grades. I can pass tests. But, I can find my own path. So even going into college, I was even in the mindset, I don't want to be here. I don't need to be here. But my parents always hit me with, and any immigrants or first generation people listening will understand. They said, we didn't move to this country so that you could end up the same as us. We moved to this country so you could surpass us, have better opportunity than us, and college is the way to do that. That's always been ingrained in my mind. You need to go to college, you need to get a degree, and you just need to, because that's the way. So I said, I personally didn't want to, but I did it. I said, hey, my parents are right. They're right. They raised me. They're the ones who have provided everything for me, so I'm going to do this for them. To tell them, I did what you asked, and then post that, I'll figure out my own way. So then my whole idea in college was, I'm going to wake up at the latest possible moment. I'm going to show up to class. I'm going to do the bare minimum I need to get an A or to get a B or what have you, whatever GPA I'm trying to go for. I'm going to do the bare minimum to get that GPA, and then I'm going to go back home. And then that's it. And I'm going to do that as fast as possible. So I actually graduated in 3.5 years. I started fall of 2014, and I graduated fall of 2017. I sped run through it. I just took all the bare minimum classes that I needed to take, and then I got out.
So internships would have slowed you down, basically.
Exactly.
Okay. It's funny you say that, because I did not get that sense from you in class, because whenever you were in class, you were 100% engaged, right? So that's what I saw, which I think is interesting.
Because even if I'm not, that's kind of the mindset I have. Even if I'm not this isn't the perfect place for me, I do believe in not ever taking any half measures. I don't believe in any half measures. I believe if I'm there, I'm going to be present. And I'm going to do my best work no matter where I am, just because that's the kind of person I am. That's what I want to show the world, is that even if I'm not in full agreement, if I don't fully like it, I'm going to do the best work I can so that I can, be proud, take pride in my work.
Yeah, I mean, this is a totally separate conversation, but I do think it's really interesting, right, that it's like you can actually go into something without the mindset, I'm going to give it everything I got, and I'm going to throw everything I have and just exhaust myself on it. You can actually go in with a sense of, I'm going to get through this, and I'm not giving it 100%, but it's like, when you're there, or when you're doing the thing you're doing, it's like, I'm doing this, so I'm going to give it my attention, I'm going to give it my focus, and get a lot out of that, right?
Exactly.
And that's like the super efficient way to use your time, because it's like, I'm putting the time in anyway, so let's not waste it, which I think is really smart.
And it helps a lot that, as I mentioned, your class was one of the last ones that I took. It was the last semester I took. And to be completely honest, this isn't, and everyone's going to say, oh, that's why he brought him on the podcast, because he was a favorite. But your class was genuinely one of my favorites, in all honesty. And this is not, I apologize to any of my other past professors. But if other...
I paid him to say this.
Yeah, this is paid sponsor. No, this isn't that. But if any of my other past professors had emailed me, I might have thought twice and said, I didn't get a lot out of their class. I didn't care much for their class. I didn't care much for them. So I'm not going to go. I'm not even going to respond. But when I saw your name pop up on my phone, I said, oh, Kenji, I remember him. I remember his course, and I learned a lot in that course. I'm going to give back however I can.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's really great to hear. And thanks for being here. Also, I really appreciate it. So here's what I want to ask you, though. In that 4-month period, right? What was going through your head, and maybe even like maybe the month before you graduated too, right? That period of time, your parents have sacrificed for you. You know that they've sacrificed for you, and you're graduated, and now you're trying to make something happen, but it's not happening right away. What was that like?
Exactly what it sounds like. Just depressing, awful.
Okay.
No, I mean, you said it best with the sacrifice. Going back to my last point, my dad always tells me the story. When he came to this country, he said, I came to the United States under less than legal means, per se. He's a citizen now, so I feel comfortable saying that. Okay, so he's a citizen now, but he arrives to this country. He says, I was 18 years old. I didn't have any family. I didn't have any friends. I had $50 in my pocket. Not a citizen with nothing to his name. And he's like, and I had to figure it out. I had to make something of myself. So for those 4 months, it genuinely was a feeling of like, wow, my parents literally inverted so much money, not only in the whole 18 years prior to college, but during college, they paid so much for me. And now here I am living under room and board, no longer in school, have no job. I felt my biggest concern was like, man, I'm really letting them down. They need my help. and I feel like a bum. I feel like a lazy bum, which I knew I wasn't because I knew I was putting in effort to try to find something. Yeah. But it's always nagging in the back of your head that it's like, wow, I could be supporting my family. I could be helping them pay rent, pay bills, pay for groceries even, just buying dinner every once in a while, and I can't. You know, at least when you're in school, you have the excuse that like, oh, that's his job, is a full-time studying. Right. But now I'm not in school, and I also don't have a job, so I'm just waking up and doing nothing all day. Right. So for me, at least, as the kind of person I am, I felt terrible. I remember every morning waking up feeling guilty that I couldn't find a job.
That's hard.
And like I mentioned, for some people, 4 months, I know some people have went through that for way longer. Yep. But during those 4 months, like you said, that's when you're like, all of those anxieties and all those concerns and worries and stresses, they're nagging at you constantly.
So how did you manage that? And also, like, what were you doing? Did you have any strategies, that were helpful for you to sort of keep yourself motivated, and also strategies for finding a job? And then eventually, what did you do, and how did you land something?
Yeah, so thankfully we can get out of the sad part. No, but essentially, you heard me kind of mention I'm a Christian, so my faith is very important to me. I do believe in God, and so I had that faith. You know, I would pray, I would go to church, I would pray, I would read my Bible, and that was really the main thing that kept me centered, in the sense of I knew, things might not be going well right now, but there's a plan. That, even though I feel kind of guilty about it, my mom was like, we want you here. Like, you're not hurting us by being here. Like, you're my son. Of course we're going to care for you. Right. And so my own self-dependency and my need for self-sufficiency was not letting me see that. And just in general, my personality, I know, hey, it's going to work out. Yeah. I know I'm going to figure it out, whether it's happening now or later or when, I'm going to do it. So I just focused on, I tried a bunch of different things, but as I mentioned, because I had no internships, I didn't really have any outside connections really to look for, because we could probably get into it later, but that was one of my conflicts earlier. I was like, once I had graduated, I was like, man, maybe I should have taken some internships. Man, maybe I should have talked to more people. Maybe I should have gone to more networking events, etc. All the things that I would hear constantly professors tell me, former students tell me, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to the beach, you know? So I was like, maybe I should have listened to all of them.
I mean, one more semester would have been 4 months.
Right, exactly, exactly. So really the main resource that I went to was the classic online job hunting, places like Indeed, and not LinkedIn. I didn't look at LinkedIn. I didn't actually have a LinkedIn. That's how down bad I was. I didn't have a LinkedIn up until 2022.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So it was about 4 years. Yeah, 4 or 5 years after graduating that I finally said, I guess I'll make one. But yeah, so I was looking at those job hunting sites. Okay. And that's where I ended up finding my first one. I was like, you know what? At first I started out, I want to be making at least X amount of X salary. And then I was like, okay, it's been a couple months. Nothing. All right, that's going a little lower. Okay. And then a couple months. And the reason I was in business management was because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm really jealous and envious of people that they woke up one day in high school or one day in college and they were like, I know my passion. Yeah, I know what I want to do. This is the only thing I want. I'm going to go all in because I don't want anything else. Nothing in my entire life has ever made me feel that way, at least not work related. I've felt that way about things like I love watching the Lakers, but unless I become,
there's not that many jobs for watching the Lakers.
Exactly. Unless I grow, 5 feet, or I should have gone into broadcasting, then maybe I would have had it, but I wasn't interested in those things. Yeah. So I said, you know what, I want something that's going to give me the widest possible variety. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, what company, what business doesn't need someone that understands how to run a business? Right. So I thought to myself, you know what, with this management degree, I can go into any field really that strikes my fancy, and then we'll see where the wind takes me from there. Right. And so the only real thing that I knew, this is a joke that I made earlier, but the only thing I'm good at doing is talking. Right. I always say that. Like, I'm very comfortable speaking with everyone. I'm extroverted. I say I'm the worst combination. I'm very opinionated and also very loud.
It was great in the strategy class because we had a couple of people, right? It's always nice as a professor when you've got like several people who have opinions and are perfectly happy to voice them. It makes the discussion much more interesting. So I appreciated it.
And that's exactly the thing. So with business strategy, I was like, I understand this perfectly. This is right in my wheelhouse. I love it. I love strategizing. I love discussing. I love having these conversational moments. but it's not like I can really walk onto a company and say, hey, I'd like to be your strategist, today, or I'd like to be your I graduated in business management. Hey, I know I'm a 21-year-old fresh out of college with no experience. Let me be your manager.
Right.
So it's a little bit difficult when it actually
sell.
came to it. So I was like, what can I do? And so I said, I'm a salesperson. I can go into sales because, the cliche, you're always selling. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go into sales, and I think I'll be good at it. And I think it'll teach me a lot. So I started looking for sales positions.
So you were on Indeed, and then you had a certain salary target. You said, okay, maybe I might loosen that a little bit.
Right.
And then you started looking in sales on Indeed.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then that's what I did. And so one day in April, I sent my resume to one of the sales positions that we're offering. But I was like, okay, I don't like the offer, but but I need something. It's been 4 months.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have not taken the job if I wasn't in such times.
Sure.
But because I was like, you know what, I need to. I'm running out of savings, so I don't want to have to be 21 years old asking my parents for everything. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't feel comfortable with that. So I said, this is the job I'm going to take, and that's how I landed it.
Okay. I do want to point out one thing, which is when you were a student, we didn't have a sales class, and now we have one. And we're trying to build it. I think it's a really great thing. If anyone who has this type of personality, right, it's a really good opportunity to develop a skill that's super useful in the workplace, right? It's like you can,
100%.
if you have that as sort of your natural inclination, is to be good at talking to people and also empathetic and can understand where people are coming from. To refine that into a skill set like sales is a really valuable one.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I would say, and I think the thing that did affect me the most, my feeling was just, man, maybe I should have looked more. I feel like during college, I developed a lot of my soft skills, but I kind of, because those are my natural strengths,
right,
that I was never like outside of my comfort zone in the sense of like, I'm learning something completely brand new that I have no idea about.
Right.
I feel like I may not have done enough of that. And so I feel like if I had worked on my hard skills more, for example, even something as basic as Microsoft Office.
Right.
I was seeing so many things that are saying, oh, we want someone who knows how to work in this program. Even if you don't want to go into programming or be a software engineer or something along those lines, having those skills is still really essential and really necessary. So I would see postings that said, entry-level position, minimum 1 to 3 years experience required, or X knowledge of X program. And I was like, I've never even heard of that program.
Right.
And so I think that's what really led me even more towards sales, because as you mentioned, in sales, all you have to do is be a people person and talk to people. So then I was like, that's the only thing I'm good at, so that's the way I have to go.
So I'm wondering if you could share for me. So you got the sales position. How long were you in that position?
I believe exactly 1 year and 4 months.
Okay.
1 year and 4 months.
So almost a year and a half. I'm wondering if you could talk to me about challenges that you experienced once you got into that position, and maybe how you overcame them, and if not this position, if you didn't face any challenges, then in maybe a subsequent position, and then any setbacks that you had in early career, and then how you handled them, or any insight on how people should handle those kind of situations.
I thought of a few different challenges, and I do have ones for different stages of my career.
Okay.
But just keep in mind, to start out from the beginning where I currently am now, this is an entry-level position. So in some people's eyes, it could be that all of my career stops were a setback because I never really promoted or really graduated to a higher position in anywhere that I attended, because I didn't have a full interest. I was like, I'm not a fan of this company, or I'm not a fan of this work.
Right. So this goes back to that question you said earlier. The thing you said earlier was you're a little bit envious of people that know what they want to do.
Exactly.
Because if you know what you want to do, then it's like you can go full 100% into it, and then you burst through one barrier, and then you go to the next and the next and the next challenge. So there's a sequencing that allows you to have a trajectory. Whereas if you're not really sure, then you might bounce around, and you're sort of starting over in every single situation.
And that's definitely what I've been until this point in my career. That it's like, tried this, didn't like it. Tried that, didn't like it. Tried this, didn't like it. And so it was constantly. I wouldn't consider them quote unquote setbacks.
Right.
Some might, but for me, it's like a fresh start, as you mentioned. I'm starting from scratch in each place that I go. Yeah. So it hasn't allowed me to fully develop as far as I would like to. Just to be completely honest, I would like to be obviously in a higher position by title, higher position by salary. I would love to be at this point in my life, like I said, 6 years. Yeah. But because I didn't have that privilege of knowing exactly what I wanted.
Right.
It was a search. So I would say that in and of itself is a challenge.
Yeah.
Being able to find what I actually want to do.
Can you, I didn't go through, what were the things that you did in between? So you did the sales for a year and a half at this initial job. Right. And then after that?
Yeah. So my first job was in sales, and it was for a furniture company that focused on selling specifically kitchen doors. Okay. And so I did start with the sales, and so I enjoyed it when I could speak with clients and things like that. But I would say a challenge that came was when I was hired, the manager that I had wasn't the best at teaching me things. Right. And so I was taught by other people in my same position that were like, don't listen to what they say. They don't really know what they're doing. They're just in that position because they've been here for a long time.
Right.
This is how we actually do it. And the sad thing is I was there for about, I would say 2 or 3 weeks. And the person that I had as like a main mentor, who had the same position as me, had taught me basically everything that I needed to know. And I was, doing well. And I was getting, noticed by higher ups, and they would say, "Oh, wow, you caught on quickly. You're doing a really great job." About a month in to being at that position, the mentor that I had, he walks into the building, and then he's quickly walked back out by HR.
Oh no!
And they had handed him. We found out about this later when we spoke on the phone. They had handed him his resignation letter, basically, okay. And they said, "We don't need you anymore."
Right.
And so I had to sit here, and I was like, "Oh my God, I just took that guy's job."
Right.
I just took that guy's job, and
so they moved you into his.
Well, we were working the same position.
I see.
Only now, instead of 2 of us, there's only me.
Only you.
Because they saw, oh, he's a quick learner. He can handle the workload.
Yeah.
And apparently there was some internal conflicts that they didn't really like the guy that had taught me things, and so they used me as the first opportunity to get him out. And so that to me was a challenge in the sense of not only was it the guilt of like, oh man, like I just cost that guy his job by doing my job. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't try it. I liked him. But also in the sense of like, okay, this company's shady.
Right.
That is not an ethical thing, I think, to have done. Especially like no pre-warning, no pre-phone call. Like he woke up that day, got ready for work, walks into the office, literally is ready to start working. They just tell him, oh, by the way, you don't work here anymore.
Yeah.
To me, when I saw that, I was like, I don't want to be here. The people who are running this company are willing to do that to someone.
Right.
And this is a smaller startup company. So it wasn't like some detached thing, oh yeah, get rid of them. So after that, I thought to myself, I was like, these aren't the type of people that I want to work for, just off sheer principle.
Right.
But you always hear, how's it going to look on a resume? If you went to a job, you were there for 2 weeks or 1 month, and then you quit.
Yeah.
And then you go to another company, you do the same thing. Now you have 4 jobs in 1 year on a resume. What's that going to say to your potential employers? So I told myself, I said, well, I got to be here at least a year.
Right.
So now I'm trapped. And so that would be my big challenge. And that was 1 month in that I decided, honestly, I might be exaggerating with a month. It might have been 2 weeks in, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that it was a month in. I was like, I don't want to be here, and I know that for sure. Right.
So you had to go almost an entire, well, you went over a year. I went over the year. Of a year, but in that moment, you had made the decision that I just have to put up with this for a year. But being in a situation where you're not happy and you're saying I'm putting up with this is just not great for you.
And so that's why I wouldn't call that like one specific challenge, but that situation in and of itself, being in a place that you don't like, that you don't want to be in for a year, that's a challenge in and of itself.
Absolutely.
So I would say that would be a main challenge. So I would, in terms of advice or in terms of how I was able to work with it, thankfully, while I wasn't a fan of the company, the people on my level, my other coworkers, we got along really well.
Right.
So thankfully, I was able to focus on the good in spite of the bad. I was like, you know what? I'm not a fan of the company. I'm not a fan of the work, but my coworkers are fun to talk to, fun to spend time with. We do work there. And so I noticed in a different department of the company, which was more of the supply side, the buy side, where they actually purchased the wood and the materials from their supplier, from their vendors. They needed someone, and so they were like, man, we really need someone. And I was like, I'll do it. I have a supply chain degree, and I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And they said, okay. And so they brought me on really quickly. And so I learned a lot there. You know, I was working client side, client facing to the consumer. And then now all of a sudden I was dealing with the vendor and I was dealing with the vendor side. And so I really enjoyed it. So I still look at it and I still say, you know, I still got a lot of really good experience. I learned how to deal with difficult situations, how to navigate situations like that, you know, is really important and really crucial. But then, so I ended up finally quitting that job for similarly shady reasons. I said, you know what, I'm over it. I don't need this anymore. And I actually decided, you know, I'm good at sales. Right. And I said, you know, I want to go into real estate because I'm good at sales. That's what I like to do. That's what I know how to do. And the ceiling is, you know, there is no ceiling. With 4 or 5 sales in a year, I'm already making quadruple what I would be making in a sales position elsewhere. So I quit that job and I started focusing on getting my real estate license.
Okay.
I earned my real estate license, and I worked for a real estate firm officially I had my license and I had my license hung up with them for about a year, but I was really only actively pursuing leads for about a 4-month period. And as I mentioned, I was doing it for 3-4 months, no sales. It might be that, you know, again, it's like, oh, it feels like this is pure luck. You know, it's just who picks up at the right time, who calls at the right moment. And one thing that my manager did say to me that at the time, my real estate coach, that I still stuck with, even if I didn't appreciate it. He's like, sure, maybe it is about getting lucky, but the only way you get lucky is if you pick up the phone.
Right.
If you didn't pick up the phone in the first place, it wasn't going to happen. So you put in the work to get lucky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That's solid advice. But at least from my perspective, didn't happen for me.
Right.
Maybe it would have been way different if, you know, week 1 or month 1, I did end up striking it. And then I got a sale that kept me going. It's like, hey, now I have enough money to last me the rest of another 6 months. Right. Maybe it would have been different for me in that sense. But because it didn't, because it was my situation, I said, you know what? I'm not a fan. Okay. You know, I like the no ceiling that it has. I think that's beautiful. And I still really love the idea of being your own business, being your own entrepreneur. I think that's amazing. But I was like, you know what? Specifically, that aspect wasn't for me. So, and how did I forget? Of course, I earned my real estate license in February of 2020.
Oh, okay. Right. There's that.
I'm so sorry. That played a big role into it. So then, March 2020, I bought my car that I still own today. I bought my car that I said, this is the car that I'm going to use to drive people to show them houses. Right. And then 1 week after buying my car, everything shuts down. Yeah. So then all of a sudden it's like, well, I can't leave my house anymore. Yeah. I can't sell houses. And so then the whole 4 months that I was doing it was during 2020, bleeding into 2021. Right. To the point where it's like probably the worst time possible for me to have started. But from there, I was like, you know what? Now I can't leave my house. I need something to do. What job can I get that I don't have to leave my house now? You know, for the sake of my family's safety, you know, and health. And so I ended up getting a customer service role. Okay. So I got a customer service role, which is fully remote, fully work from home, earning more than I had been in my previous sales position. Right. But now I'm doing customer service. Right. So I will say, while I didn't enjoy it, I actually was in that customer service position for over a year as well. Okay. And while I hated it, and obviously I don't like it, I wouldn't go so far as to be the cliche that says, oh, everyone should work in a customer service role at least once. Right. Or everyone should work retail or a restaurant at least once to see how it feels. But I will say it was very helpful. Yeah. I quickly learned and was able to master the sense of keeping a smile on my face and keeping pleasant tones while someone's being very, very unpleasant to you. And, you know, I'm getting screamed and yelled at in my ear for something that wasn't my fault. Right. And I have to respond, I'm extremely sorry to hear that, but I would be more than happy to help you with XXXX. And so I learned how to do that. Not only did I get the sales experience from learning how to talk with people in sales, now I got the other end of it, the customer service experience, where I learned how to just let that bounce off me. Yeah. And so thankfully that was another experience that I think was really, really helpful and useful. And then that led me into, I tried sales, I tried customer service. I don't want to talk to anyone anymore. Okay. I don't want to deal with the average consumer on the street anymore.
Yes, got it.
I can't mentally, physically. It's just the toll is too much. I said, I need something where I can still have that human interaction, use my soft skills for good, but be a little bit more detached. I said, you know what, I have to make the shift into marketing. I want to work in a marketing company. And then that's when I thought to myself, man, maybe I should have done marketing at school instead of management. Maybe that would have been a little bit more niche and more narrow. This gets into our question, but one piece of advice, maybe try to find a niche. Even if I myself, the reason I didn't go into marketing is I said, maybe I'll like it, but what if I don't?
Right.
Then I'm stuck. All I have is a marketing degree. So I had to go with the management degree because that was broad. But the problem with being broad is now you don't have any specific skills.
Yeah.
And then it's every company who, for an entry-level position, is looking for those specific skills. And it's like, well, what are your skills? Oh, I'm a manager. Oh, I'm a people person.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, so's our janitor. It's like, well, we want you to come on here and we want you to be our engineer.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like, oh, well, I'm stuck now. So the way I was able to find it was I attacked it a little differently. I did go on the job hunting boards, no dice, no luck, very difficult. You're looking for entry-level roles, and they're all requiring at least 2 years of experience in that role. And it's like, this isn't adding up, but fine.
So can I interrupt for just a second? Is there a reason why you didn't, when you decided, I guess it's because you were thinking about staying with the sales thing. It's just interesting because you did work in kind of a supply chain type of situation in that first job, right? You switched from the sales part to the procurement part, I guess.
Right.
So is there a reason that you didn't think, oh, I do have experience in purchasing, maybe I should look for a purchasing job?
And I actually had friends who had worked in those procurement fields. Hey, I can get a job for you. But genuinely, I just didn't like it.
You just weren't interested.
I didn't.
That's
I
a
didn't
perfectly
enjoy.
valid reason. Yeah.
I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing. Again, it was great that I was able to work with the coworkers that I worked with, but the work itself was not interesting to me in any way. I didn't like purchasing.
Okay.
So I stayed away from it. So I said, I'll go into the marketing realm and I thought to myself, I'm in LA. I love film.
Right.
I love, entertainment in general, video games, things like that. Yeah. So I said, if I look into marketing for a company that delves into those types of things, I'll be doing, something that I'm at least, tangentially interested in.
Right.
And I can still offer something there in the marketing role. And so job hunting, job boards were not a big help. And so I actually looked to a former student here at Cal State Long Beach, a classmate that I had. It's insane how things like this happen. And so I actually spoke with someone that I became friends with that I took a grand total of 1 course with. My first semester of school here at Long Beach. And we became friends from that 1 course that we took together. And she had actually majored in marketing.
Right.
And so when I was looking, I said, oh, you know what? My friend, she was a marketing major.
Right.
I wonder what she's up to. So I just called her. I called her, and we had spoken occasionally over the years, but we weren't really that close. But I just called her and I said, hey, how's it going? Let's go out to eat. And she said, yes, thankfully. Yeah. And so I asked her, I said, I'm trying to get into marketing. I know that obviously I didn't just interview her instantly. We were talking, we were having a good time. I said, I want to get into marketing. What would you recommend? Yeah. I just asked her. And she said, she is currently working for Disney. Okay. So it was along the same lines of where I wanted to go. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to work for a company like Disney. How did you get there? And she said, I started off as a media planner for a media agency. Essentially what a media agency does is, while not being the actual marketing department for a company, a media agency is like an external agency that a company hires to plan out and sometimes even to execute the advertising and the marketing for their product or service, their campaign. Right. Exactly. So she said, I do that. And so when you work in a company like that, you can get one of these clients. Mm-hmm. And then if that client likes you enough, you can maybe make the jump from the agency side to the actual client side, which is the business side, the company side. And so I said, you know what? Sounds good. Let's give it a shot. It sounds interesting to me. I feel like I would like it. It's detached enough, but not as far as I need to be from the end consumer. Yeah. So let's do it. And so I just started looking for jobs along those lines. Still, it took a long time. Sure. It took a long time. I was applying to agencies like that, and it did take about another month or 2. But then finally, one bit, and thankfully, and it's actually interesting. Now, I mentioned I'm with UM. I work on, my client is the Activision Blizzard account
cool.
who makes video games.
That's
They
cool.
make Call of Duty and things like that. And then also the Crunchyroll account, which is, they're a streaming service that sells primarily anime.
Okay.
And so I'm like, both they're really cool things.
Yeah.
And I didn't start there. I started working. It's funny. I started interviewing to be on a team that was going to have a client that was doing something very mundane that I didn't really care for. But I was like, you know what? It's been 6 months. I need my foot in the door somehow.
You want to get in, right?
I need to get in. And so I interviewed for that. And then, of course, the recruiter calls and she goes, I'm so sorry. The position that you interviewed for, they actually decided they don't want to hire anyone anymore. I said, well, great, that sucks. And he said, but I have another company who says that they would like something. Would you be okay with an impromptu interview with them tomorrow? And I was like, I don't have any other choice. What else am I going to do? So I said yes. And thankfully it was UM.
Okay.
It was UM, and they were hiring me to be a part of the Sony Electronics team.
Okay.
Which is great because that's, again, headphones, speakers, TVs, things like that. That's cool. It's kind of neat. And thankfully, I went through the interview process. I was hired, and it was amazing. And then time passed, and I stayed on that account. And I said, okay, well, now how do I make the jump from these things to entertainment field? And thankfully, I was able to. The Sony Electronics account ended up leaving UM.
Okay.
They're somewhere else now with a different agency. But in that midst, while I was doing that, and this is why I mentioned the network, you never know who you're going to talk to, you never know who you're going to see. I was invited. They said, hey, we need Call of Duty players. For a brainstorm. We're doing a Call of Duty campaign, and we need some opinions. We need some advice. And so I show up to this brainstorm, and I start, as I mentioned, I'm loud, I'm opinionated. I was just saying, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that. This would be awesome, yada, yada, yada. I was really into it, really hype. And then like a couple days later, we get the news that Sony Electronics is leaving. Right. I'm like, I'm out of a job because that client is leaving. I mean, they're not going to just let us go, but now I don't have a client. I'm just going to be an employee here, with no home. Right. And the same day, say, hey, you really impressed at the brainstorm. You really impressed the managers there. They liked what you had to say. Right. They liked your passion. They liked your fire for the thing. We need someone.
Okay.
Come over.
That's cool.
And so I got there. And so I'm happy to say, this is going forward a lot of steps. I'm happy to say that right now, I love my job. I'm extremely happy.
Fantastic.
It's funny because I didn't think that I was going to enjoy it, but it's like you say, you never know until you actually start doing it. And I started doing it, and I really love it to the point where previous jobs, as you've heard, obviously my work history hasn't been the best. Right. Within a month, I was like, I need out. I want out. Yeah. Here, I started in June of 2022. Yeah. We are now in 2023. I already forgot October of 2023. And I still love it. Yeah. And I'm still I still love it. I still want to be here. So hopefully that continues.
That's great.
But yeah.
That's really
Sorry
great.
for that extremely long answer.
No. But a couple things jump out at me, right? There's a couple things that jump out at me. One is going back to the thing that we had talked about earlier about that sort of presence in the classroom, right? That sort of capacity that you have of when I'm in the situation, I am 100% engaged. That was the thing that stood out in the brainstorming for a Call of Duty thing, right? It's that same type of behavior. And so I really believe that that's a really important thing. It's like when you're there to really be there because people pick up on it and it has an impact. It's impactful. The other thing I think is kind of interesting is what you said about the mentoring. It's you're always getting, I'm sorry, not the mentoring, the networking. You're always getting advice to network. And I do sometimes wonder if we're giving students the right advice, though, because we're telling them to go to networking events and meet new people, go to, it's like collect a stack of business cards, right? But
get a Rolodex.
But what you're talking about is you establish connections with people, right? And so it's like you have those connections with people that have there's something real to them, and so it's more about maintaining that connection, right? So it's in my class, I have you guys working in groups all the time, right? Talking to other people. And my hope, and part of the hope I have in doing that is you guys will form a bond that will transcend the classroom because those then, if it's just I'm sitting next to someone, I'm listening to a faculty member, it's like you're not necessarily engaging. But when you're having conversations, then you get to know each other. Those are all potential connections and contexts that you can rely on going forward. And it doesn't mean you have to be best friends, this person that you spoke with, someone, you connected with, and then, just occasionally you would keep in touch. But that type of networking, I think, is really valuable, right? Having something that's not just I met you at an event, we shook hands, and you gave me a business card.
Right. Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And to go into one of your questions that I think is a really beautiful one and a thought, which is if I could go back in time and give advice to my college self, what would I say?
Yeah.
Well, firstly, it probably starts way earlier. I probably wouldn't have gone in with the attitude of, I don't even want to be here. Right. I'm just doing this for my parents. I'm just going to get in and get out as quick as I can. But that's something that was a mentality I had since high school. But to my college self, what I would say is, because I was one of those. And that's why I know if you're anything like me and you're listening to this podcast, you're going to say, I've heard it all before. I know best. I know myself. I don't need that. Right. I'll figure it out myself. And so I would like to caveat your question. Not only what advice would you give to your past self, but what advice would you give to your past self that you would then force them to implement? Because I know myself, even if I came to myself right now in a time machine and I said, Leo, do this, this, and that, I would have said, I'll figure it out. Right. I'm not going to listen to that guy. I really would. And I know there's a lot of people listening that are probably similar to me. Right. They think they know it, Right. So what I would say, if I could go back in time and force myself to implement any advice, it would be that. It would be, I know you think internships sound lame and they're just a waste of time. And even if you say, I'm not going to join any clubs either because those seem lame and they're all, pretend like they're happy and they like what they're doing. They don't really like what they're doing. They're just doing it because they know it looks good on a resume. And that's lame. You don't need a resume. You'll wow people yourself with your personality. I would just tell myself, hey, you're right. You're still right about everything that you're saying. But the same way that you force yourself to go to school, wake up, force yourself to join a club. Force yourself to do an internship. Force yourself to take classes out of your comfort zone that are going to build your hard skills. That's probably the most practical piece of advice. Take those extra courses that can kind of build your hard skills, nothing crazy, but just so you can say that you know them. Right. You can put them on a resume and say, hey, I know how to do this. I can do this one specific task. You don't have to just say, I talk good on your resume. That doesn't have to be the only thing you have to list. But you can show an internship. And regarding the networking events, I always thought, man, it's so lame. It's a bunch of dudes dressed up in suits that they're never going to wear again, that they probably didn't even iron, and they're all just handing each other business cards, and everyone's there for the same reason, so no one's actually going to get anywhere because they're all just intermingling. But what I will say is, to your point, build connections better, which is don't talk, walk up and say, hey, how are you? What do you want to do? Why are you here? No, just, I would say, treat everything as a networking event. Don't go to the ones that say networking event in bold on the flyer. Right. Just, hey, Leo, you want to go get something to eat? Hey, you want to go over here? I have a group of friends that they just invited me to X place. Yeah. Because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to talk to. And it's not about being there at that place or for that internship. For me, why would I take this class? I'm never going to use that. Right. Why would I have this internship? I don't even want to work for that company. Right. It's about meeting people. If I didn't make friends with that person in my first class ever, and I didn't still have her number, who knows what I would be doing right now? Right. Quite literally, I had no clue what a media agency was. Right. I didn't know it existed. Right. Until I met up with her. I called her. I said, hey, remember me? Yeah. Let's go out for dinner. Yeah. We went out for dinner, and she told me about it, and then I started looking, and now where I am, and like I said, I'm over a year, and I still love it. Yep. And I would never, ever have known that if I didn't just talk to her that one day in class. So if I never bring up the courage to be like, you know what, I haven't seen her in over a year. She's probably not going to want to hear from me anyway. I'm not going to call. Right. Having the courage and the putting in the work, basically. Even it's like, that's not work. Reaching out to someone isn't work. But in anything you do, if you don't put that step forward, you're not going to get that opportunity to get lucky. Yeah. So it's not who you know in the sense of, oh man, I need to have high up connections. I need to know someone's dad. No, it's who you know in the sense of go everywhere. Right. Do everything. Take every invitation. Say yes to however many things you can, and just talk to people. Do your best. If you're going out with friends, do your best to not leave your friends hanging, but like spread out a little
Right.
bit. Reach out to someone and not just, again, the hi, bye, here's my business card, but in the sense of like, get to know them. Actually talk to them, exchange phone numbers, not just LinkedIn's. You know, because I had that last night. We went on a group outing for work. We went to Topgolf. And some guy there walks up to me, and we had chatted a bit throughout that day, and he goes, hey, really quick, before I forget, I thought he was going to ask me for my phone number. I was like, oh, cool, so we can talk, we can chat. He goes, hey, really quick, this is my LinkedIn. Can you add me, please? I need another connection. And I was just like, okay, sure.
Right.
And he went around and he asked everyone to add him on LinkedIn.
Right.
And it's like, yes. Is having more connections on LinkedIn going to look better on your resume? Of course it will. Are they going to check your LinkedIn? Yes, they will. But is that really getting to know someone?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Is that really
right?
Are you really building that connection with that person, or are you just adding a checklist?
Yeah, and I think the thing about one thing about connection and like the network, there's a whole body of research on social networks, and you know one of the things that's clear about networks is it's the ability for people to get information or ideas through other people, right? It could be knowledge of an opportunity. It could be like in your case, a perspective about the potential jobs and stuff. And so it's looking at, you know, having people that you can tap into to expand your knowledge base about all the things that you want. It's not necessarily about, oh, I'm friends with that person, they're going to get me a job. It's that, oh, here's someone who might be able to teach me something that's really valuable, that can be really valuable for me. And it's just easier to do when you have an actual sense of connection with that person, right? If you reach out to somebody that you actually had a genuine conversation with, and you liked each other's company, and the conversation flowed well and it felt good, it's like there's a reason to reach out for that person, because it's like that person is probably going to be happy to hear from you because there's some connection there, as opposed to perhaps the person who, you know, who's got you on LinkedIn now, you're like,
I'm one of 500 plus connections.
This was this guy who just went and he spent just enough time to get me to, you know, connect with him on LinkedIn. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. So yeah, I think it really is important to build real connection with people. I think it's super important.
So that would be the biggest piece of advice I would give for sure.
And then the other thing I think it's interesting when you say the thing about internships, one of the things you said was, people might be like, what if I don't like it, or blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't really want to work for that company. What if I don't like it? It's like, if you don't like it, you've learned that that's something that you don't like.
It's a learning experience, exactly.
Because wouldn't it have been better to learn the things that you didn't like before you actually spent like X months of your life?
Exactly.
You know, doing it. So I think that's something as well. So let me ask you, I guess, what's next for you? And also, balancing professional versus personal, those two things. Like that first one, like, you know, how do you strike a balance between, you know, work-life balance, all the stuff you have to do in order to be successful in a career, and still have, as you said, time for your family and stuff like that. So maybe some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So it's funny. I remember one of the things that I read in a real estate book was, and I did really like it, that it was basically the one thing where it said, okay, if the general theme of the book was, all right, everyone makes a to-do list, and everyone checks off as much as they can from their to-do list, and then they feel accomplished because, I did 9 out of 10 things on my checklist. But the one thing that you left was the most important thing that you had to do. But it was the heaviest thing, so you didn't really feel like it. He's like, get rid of to-do list, get rid of all of that, narrow it down. What's the one thing that I need to do today to actually progress forward in life and career, whatever it is? What's the one thing I need to do today? Focus on doing that ASAP. Yeah. Then move on to the other things that are on your plate as well.
Right.
And so I took that to heart. I thought that was great. But one chapter in that was, there's no such thing as work-life balance. They said, kind of what you said, whatever you're doing, put your all into it at that time. He goes, some days I'm putting my all into my family, and other days I'm putting my all into work. And sorry, but when I'm in work mode, maybe it's not a day, maybe it's a month. A month, I'm not seeing my family. A month, I'm focusing on work, but you're doing it for the bigger picture. Right. That was a chapter that was written by a real estate professional for real estate professionals to read, telling them there's no such thing as a work-life balance. Right. I remember reading that, just thinking to myself, I don't know if I like that. Right. Maybe he's right. Maybe it probably does work for him. But do I want to go a month without seeing my family? Right. Do I want to go a month without hanging out with my friends? to me, I just decided maybe that's not the career for me, if that's
Right.
what it takes.
Right.
So I learned that pretty quickly, that I was like, I need to be able to turn off. I need to be able to unplug. You probably never remembered this because I enjoyed your class. So when I enjoyed a class, I would attend it. If a course ever graded on attendance and it was like, oh, attendance is 10% of your grade or 15% of your grade, I was like, I'll get a B on that course. I was like, if I don't want to go, if I don't feel the need to go, I'm not going to go. I attended all of your classes because I enjoyed it. So I was like, I'll go. And you didn't even grade attendance. Note to all the professors, if any professors are listening to this, he didn't need to grade attendance. Make your class engaging, they'll show up. Anyways, long story. Again, another ad, #sponsored. No, but so I was the type that I was like, you know what? I probably need an hour or two to really review this material before the test. I'm going to go to the beach.
Right.
I was like, all right, cool. I've been here for a couple hours. Now I'll go home. Now I'll read.
Right.
I know that for myself. I need that moment of unplugging. Okay. I can't be always on. And that was another thing with real estate. You have to be always on. I didn't enjoy that. Yeah. I was like, I need times where it's like sometimes I'm working and sometimes I'm relaxing. So I was like, what job can I get that would allow me to do that? And thankfully, the current position that I'm in allows that.
Okay.
So kind of what you, go ahead.
Well, I think in your case, it's like you've known from it's been sort of hardwired into you to make sure you're setting aside time for yourself.
Right.
And you've managed to keep that once you graduated in the career thing.
And I'm always, maybe this isn't the advice that a professor wants his students to hear, but I'm always of the mindset that, like, my mentality in life, whatever work or task or goal that you have, I feel as long as it gets done, it gets done on time, and it gets done well, I could not care less what happens in the in-between.
Right.
If they tell me, Leo, this is the project that you need to do, it's due at this time, at this day, get it done, I'm like, cool. I'm going to get it done by that time, but the way I do it, I want it to be on my terms and my pace, you know? And so to me, that's how I feel. It's like, as long as the work gets done, I'm happy. And so that was something that I never neglected. So it wasn't like, I'm just not going to study at all.
Right.
And I'm just going to slack off the whole time. No, it was like, okay, I estimate this is the study guide. This is how long it's about going to take me to get through it. It's going to be about 2 or 3 hours. I'm going to set aside 2 or 3 hours to work on that. And that means all around that, I can do whatever I want. And that's been how I approach the quote-unquote work-life balance. But thankfully, with WorkWorks, where I'm currently working at UM, it's great benefits. I'm going to sound like an ad, but it really does have great benefits when it comes to insurance and all of that good junk. But on top of that, they do take seriously their wellness days.
Okay.
Thankfully, you mentioned I took a PTO day to be here. I did because we have unlimited PTO.
Oh,
and so a lot of people, I've heard a big backlash against unlimited PTO. It's like, oh, that's a gimmick that companies put up so they don't have to pay you out when you quit or when you leave. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, sure, but if you don't want to leave, then it doesn't really matter. And secondly, that only applies if you're not actually taking advantage of it.
Right.
And that's on you. So I apologize if there's any company out there that you've seen that advertises unlimited PTO or advertises a wellness day and then they don't let you take it or they make you feel guilty for taking it. Shame on them. That's a bad company. Thankfully, my company's not one of those.
Well, that's good.
They offer unlimited PTO. They offer 1 wellness day per month. Just no questions asked. Hey, I want to take a wellness day on this day. Obviously, as long as work allows it, work that gets done, that's pretty much the situation. As long as the work gets done and it's not like, oh, man, we're already going to be shorthanded. You know, you're leaving us with 2 employees left on our team.
Sure.
No, but if it's like a normal, hey, I need this Friday, they're willing to allow that. So thankfully, I'm able to work with that. That's one of the things that I love most, that I'm able to balance that. And I know that might be bad advice because a lot of people don't have that same opportunity.
They're not in the same companies,
they're not going to be at the same company that's just as encouraging to take time for yourself. Thankfully, I am. But that is what I would say is my thing is, as long as you're taking care of your responsibilities, you're handling your responsibilities, everything else is gravy. Basically, what I do is I'm the one who, my phone's on silent. Right now, today's my off day.
Yeah.
I have my Microsoft Teams app and my Microsoft Outlook. I have all the ways that my coworkers, Slack or what have you, and my coworkers can contact me if they need me. I have it on silent.
Right.
I have it on silent because this is my day. You know, even during lunch, hey, my 30-minute lunch, phone, computer on silent for 30 minutes.
So you create those boundaries.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there could be a time when there's something that's totally
Emergencies,
important and then you
right.
got to leave it on all the time. But for
Right.
the day, so normal operating thing is just like you establish the boundaries,
Right.
and as long as you're getting work done, fortunately for you, you're in a in a company that respects that. But I think, you know, in many situations, people can sort of, if they create those boundaries and they're good at managing them, in many companies it's still okay as long as you're getting your work done.
Exactly.
That
No,
sounds
and
great. That's really great.
and that's mine. And I guess that you put the emphasis the right way, as long as you're getting the work
As long
done.
as you're getting the
Get the work done. It's not like, oh, I know I'm, you know, behind 3 days, this is
Right.
overdue already, but I'm going to take my full hour lunch.
Right.
And I'm going to have it on silent. Then, sure, you have every right to do that, but how are you really coming off
Sure.
to your fellow
Yeah, and
coworkers,
you're leaving
to
your coworkers
manager,
hanging and all
you're
that.
leaving everyone hanging. So it's like, no, make sure I'm on top of things, and then once everything, okay, we're in a good place, adios for 30 minutes, you know, or whatnot, or what have you, however long we get. So yeah, that would be the main thing regarding the work-life balance, and of course, the weekends, same thing. There's some weekends that they said, hey, we're going live. I'm an ad campaign, so when they go live, they have to go live. So it's like, we're going live on Sunday night. We need someone there to push the buttons and make it go live. I have to be there. And you know what? Because they are so lenient, take this, you know, other employers, other companies, because they are so lenient all the other time, I'm like, you know what? I just took a 2-week vacation to X place. I just had my wellness day last week. They're asking me to come in one Sunday night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I can do.
For sure.
You know, no big deal. But most of the time I would say, you know, time on, you're on. Time off, you're off.
Okay.
And that would be, I think, universal advice that I feel a lot of people can't take. I know a lot of coworkers that I don't take my lunch. It's like, I'll snack while I'm in a meeting. And I'm like, no.
Okay.
Even
So it's not necessarily that everybody at your company does the same
Not
thing.
a-
but you are drawing
This
the
is
boundaries.
me. This is me, my
that's good.
boundaries. Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
So yeah. So, but I would say if they wanted to, they could. It's just not everyone's built
Right.
the same.
It's not built the same.
That's how I'm built. That's how I do my best work. And regarding your other question regarding what's next, as I mentioned, I mean, this is something that I can even ask you for advice on, just because, in the sense of, while yes, I love the current role that I'm in.
Right.
I love my current position, my current company. As you can hear, I'm happy. It sounds great. I get to be here because of where I currently am. To me, I would love to stay with this company. I would love to grow with this company for as long as I can, because I can't, as I mentioned, I joined as an entry level position. There's plenty of room for growth, and they're more than happy to help me grow and to promote me and all of that and what have you. But then you always hear that inkling, you know, that it's like in the back of your mind, or what the common knowledge I've always heard is stay in a place for 2 years and then move on to a different company at a higher position, you know. So, oh, you're an associate here, you're an associate for 2 years, transfer to a different company as a senior associate, you're going to get a bigger bump than if you had just been promoted at the first job. And so I'm like, I feel like, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because the people who are hiring new, they want to give competitive offers, whereas people who already have you, they have you.
Yeah.
So they don't need to give a competitive offers. They're not competing unless you bring competing. But anyways, so then my question is like, well, that's great advice and it would be perfect, but I like where I am.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
But then am I leaving stuff on the table? Am I leaving money on the table by doing so? And that goes back to the question of what's more important.
Right.
Is your health, mental health, emotional health, and well-being more important? The fact that I get all of these benefits and perks that allow me to maintain the work-life balance I enjoy, versus I'm making less than I could be making.
Right.
What matters more? And I feel like there's no right or wrong answer. It just depends on a person and a person's situation. But that is a thought that I have that I genuinely don't know the answer to. I can't give advice to, because that's where I am right now.
Right.
But what's next? If I had the ideal, you know, it would be to make a steady and quick progression in the current company that I'm in over the next 5 to 10 years. And have that steady and quick progression to the point where I'm earning as much as I want to be earning, as much as I believe I deserve to be earning, you know. That would be the ideal, to stay here and to be consistently gaining that progression, that I don't feel like I'm being, you know, held back by staying.
Right.
And then currently I'm single, you know. Currently, I'm still living with my parents.
Right.
So for me, career goals, I already mentioned. Personal goals, I would like to move out.
Right.
If the economy and the apartment prices ever allowed.
Right.
I would like to move out. I would like to be married.
Yeah.
I would like to have kids. And I would like to be able to establish some sort of passive income.
Right.
Something that I can at least build on, that it's like start here, then here, and it grows exponentially. Those are my long-term goals that I would like. Hopefully where I currently am is on the trajectory to get there.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I'm not sure. I'm still kind of up in the air. I'm happy where I am right now.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But that's really where I see myself next.
Okay.
Thankfully, what I will say is I found that I really, really like the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
So even if the company changes, or even if my own personal goals change, I found something that I like.
Right.
that I can at least stay in that realm, in that sphere that I'm gaining experience in.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I have some thoughts about. I think it's different for everybody whether to jump or to stay. Moving to a new place is always fraught because you don't know what it's going to be like, and so, I mean, there's a question about is the most important thing to maximize the step pay increases, right, in the immediate, or is it to sort of kind of optimize your career path, which can be two different things, right? It may be possible that in the place that you're at right now, there are all kinds of opportunities to grow and learn stuff, right? And then you'll have more of these tools under your belt so that if you did decide to go somewhere else, you've got a lot more to offer, right? So if you just stay there for 2 years, you're learning a certain amount in those 2 years. If you stay there for longer than that, but you move to this area or this area, you do a bunch of different things, then you've got like a whole bunch of more skill sets. So when you do reach out to another company, let's say that's what the situation was, there's a lot more that they might do with you, or there's a lot more ways they might be able to bring you on at a higher level.
Right.
So there's always a balance. It's not that the immediate, where's the right now best place to get the pay increases.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be sort of measured against long-term optimally what works. And what's best. So that's something to keep in mind.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, for sure.
That's at least my take on it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So anyway, Leo, thank you so much for your time and for coming down and sharing your journey. It's been all over the place.
Journey.
I'm really happy to hear that you are now in a place that you really enjoy. That's fantastic, and I know that a lot of people go through that sort of first couple year struggle of just trying to figure out where they're going to be at. So, thank you.
And for me, it was 5.
Right, exactly.
Or 4, I guess, from fall of 2017 to June of 2022 until I found a job that I was like, hey, I actually like this.
So it just takes a different amount of time for everybody. And so I think that's one thing that I hope that listeners get, that's okay to take some time to figure it out. So I really, really appreciate you sharing your experiences and your background and your wisdom and your insight. And it's just been really great talking with you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kenji. I had a great time.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you all for joining us today at Beyond the Beach. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And if you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And for those of you who want to go the extra mile, please consider leaving a review or comment. I'd love to know what you think. Thank you.